Hey everyone, Crisis here. In the wake of all the Doctor Doom hype a bit ago, I managed to detail just what makes Marvel's most infamous villain such a foe to be regarded in this video here. But today, I'll instead be giving much the same treatment for the rogues of DC Comics, cataloging and ranking their power and threat levels from weakest to strongest. Go ahead and like the video and subscribe if you haven't already, become a channel member to join the community and the Discord server, and finally, please enjoy. Firstly, though, I'd like to introduce you all to War Thunder, the definitive combat simulator game where you can soar in a fighter jet, command a battleship, or break through enemy lines in a tank. If this seems up your alley, then it's time to try War Thunder, the ultimate free-to-play military action game where you can control history's most iconic vehicles. War Thunder takes battles to the next level. Tanks, planes, ships, helicopters, every vehicle is intricately designed to convey an unparalleled sense of realism. And with advanced physics and the X-ray damage model, every hit has an impact, from fiery explosions to stunning takedowns. I don't think there's another game quite like it. The new Storm Warning update provides ray tracing, bringing realistic lighting and shadows, and the PS5 Pro's optimizations make it smoother than ever. Plus, you can get new vehicles like the Eurofighter Typhoon, Rafale jets, and the M44. And don't miss the new Attica map while you're at it. Download War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox using the link below. All new players and those who haven't played for 6 months or more get bonuses like 100,000 Silver Lions and the Eagle of Valor decorator to adorn your vehicle with courage. And don't forget to check out War Thunder Mobile on iOS or Android for action wherever you are. Like I said, links are in the description and pinned comment. Have fun on the battlefield in War Thunder today, and now, back to the video. Starting off strong with Nekron, a Lord of Death, first appearing in Tales of the Green Lantern Corps #2 from June 1981, but most famously being the main antagonist of the Blackest Night event from 2009. You see, every emotion correlates to a color, and each of these have a being which embodies such. Somewhat infamously, Parallax is the entity of fear from which Sinestro and the Yellow Lanterns draw their power from. Nekron is the entity embodying death itself, lording over the Black Lantern rings, which could empower, reanimate, and control the corpses of powerhouses such as the Spectre, Wonder Woman, and even the Golden Age and post-crisis Superman, and many more. More to the point, the Anti-Monitor, a prior big bad from DC's perhaps most infamous well-known event, had been made a prisoner of Nekron and made to power the Black Lantern power battery. While the Anti-Monitor's power waxes and wanes depending on the dimension he's in or the energy he's absorbed, this is still very noteworthy. Nekron, near the peak of his strength as his army growing gave him even more power, was able to damage the emotional entity of life, his opposite. Just as Nekron seeks to turn the living world to utter darkness, the life entity actually created all of the matter in the universe from a place outside of it. While DC's creation myth is in near constant flux, at least across the decades, considering the tier of opponents which bow to Nekron, it stands to reason that he too would scale to the creation or destruction of an entire universe. He's known as one of the most powerful dark forces of all time, which has been corroborated as recently as 2022 in Dark Crisis. Despite him not really showing up all that often, he's still feared as a heavy hitter by the heroes of today. Let this be a sign of things to come. In an effort to not drag the video on too long, I had to pick the true strongest of the strongest, and we're already starting off with someone requiring all of our heroes to team up, or every Lantern Corps to put aside their differences and become avatars of the possible creator of the universe to overcome him. Darkseid, likely the most recognizable villain mentioned so far, as he has appeared across nearly every animated series, video game, and even television and movies brandishing the DC logo. Thus, the statements of him being DC's ultimate or most powerful villain make plenty of sense. This ruler of Apocalypse, a hell-like planet residing in a higher or even platonic and conceptual dimension, sports incalculable strength. He's battled Doomsday, stronger than he was when he killed the Man of Steel. He's fought the entire Justice League at the onset of the New 52, and has even ascended to truly terrifying heights, such as when possessed by the Great Darkness. Likely the very source of all evil in the DC cosmology, even more profoundly than Darkseid himself, who actually sports similar lore. However, this rogue has undergone many transmutations across the decades. Early on in his appearances, he really wasn't much of a threat as he faced various losses, only for these L's to be retconned into being Darkseid's son, Kal-El, cosplaying as his own father. He'd built up his power after the Crisis on Infinite Earths, an event he elected to ignore, mind you, as the Anti-Monitor was too big a challenge even for him. Kind of funny, but one statement implies that the Anti-Monitor seen in the Darkseid War, who is touted as the anti-life wielding villain's ultimate rival, is actually even more powerful than he was in Crisis on Infinite Earths. So if you use this or take it literally, this could be a good sign of how much more powerful Darkseid is since the 1980s. All of this, however, really culminated in Final Crisis, where Darkseid's true form was shattered by Superman, splintering his power and making him a fraction of what he once was. This New 52 version of Darkseid would, however, regain his ultimate form, even that one Anti-Monitor statement withstanding, eventually as seen in the events of Justice League Odyssey, only to then concede utter inferiority to the Quintessence, a consortium of cosmic beings which he in fact bested just prior to Dark Crisis. This is very strange, as the new god should be stronger than he's ever been, with statements to even suggest he was weakened when under the Great Darkness's apparent possession when defeating the Quintessence. Yet a stronger Darkseid could not defeat them. As of DC All-In Special Number 1, this restored Darkseid fuses with the Spectre, an avatar of the DC version of the Christian god's wrath. While this is confusing, it may very well be elaborated on as the Absolute Universe and the Justice League Unlimited comics build up the stakes for Darkseid's return. Trigon, a Lord of Hell from an extra-dimensional reality, is often overlooked when it comes to evil forces in DC Comics. As far back as Crisis on Infinite Earths, the Monitor measured his power level as comparable to the Spectre. This is important to note, as Spectre actually did participate in the battle against the Anti-Monitor, even if he was empowered by almost every magic user at the time. This is contrasted to Darkseid, who elected to stay on the bench and maybe only jump a weakened Anti-Monitor if the heroes managed such a feat. Even Wally West's Flash in Action Comics 650, someone who has plenty of experience with both villains, scoffs at the idea of Trigon being lesser than Darkseid. From there we see various statements calling this Lord of Hell omnipotent, the ultimate evil with endless power and immeasurable ability. While many of these claims are from a prior point in time, even recently as the latest Titans run, we see Trigon strike fear in the Quintessence, as they'd rather not go to war with the forces of Hell. Compare this to any single member of that same group being capable of beating this most recent Darkseid. Even fifth-dimensional imps, beings which control sheer imagination, don't consider a hypothetical war with Hell as a one-sided affair, with Trigon being a top-tier demon, often in fact ruling the realm, while technically not even being the same kind of life form as more contemporary Lords of Hell, like Nekron or the First of the Fallen. Even the likes of Hawkgirl, Martian Manhunter, Alan Scott, and even the Man of Steel were all one-shot by the demon in the latest issues of Titans, with Superman being all it took to casually best Darkseid within the pages of Superman Man of Tomorrow number 16. Interesting thing is this lineup, which isn't specified to be the Justice League as they actually hadn't even reformed at this point in the timeline, seemed to coincide with that of the Totality, a team of superheroes built to protect the multiverse from the largest of threats, or at least what's implied to be, meaning that they do consider Trigon to be that level of an opponent, an existential threat to the multiverse, and they all pretty much get one shot by the demon. While Darkseid did assault Hell in the pages of DC All-In number 1, he teleports away from the realm before actually clashing with the father of Raven. Eclipso is the precursor to the Spectre and is the prior recipient of God's wrath. Even as recently as 2024's World Finest number 32, Spectre concedes that Eclipso is every bit as powerful as himself. This allows him to possess the Justice League's heaviest hitters, such as Batman, Superman, and Green Lantern. However, this run serves as a flashback to the days of Dick Grayson as Robin, with Eclipso only growing more powerful as we move into modern day. Spectre would be his primary rival, with entire teams of heroes barely staving off Eclipso's wrath through either unconventional means or relying on their faith of the light. This being the case is important, as these two avatars of God are stated to be perhaps the two most powerful magic users of all time. So consider Zatanna, Constantine, and even the Lords of Order. Eclipso would surpass them all. Lately again in DC All-In number 1, Darkseid, on a quest to grow more powerful than ever, is humbled in his brawl with Eclipso. Important to note, this was on the dark side of the moon, historically a nexus of power for the former host of God's Fury. The new god only sees his victory by detonating a local star with his technology, with such an amount of light being too much to bear for a being of darkness. Next on the pecking order, we have the Anti-Monitor, the foe found within the pages of Crisis on Infinite Earths, as mentioned already many times, and where I got my channel name from. This is due to said event and the Anti-Monitor's powers being foundational even to this day. As I said already, Darkseid feared the being once called Mobius and his ability to wipe away even Apocalypse. Spectre, a rival to Eclipso, sought greater power from every living magician across multiple realities to do battle with the Anti-Monitor. He was then powerful enough to fuel Nekron's forces in Blackest Night, and while his form in the Darkseid War is enigmatic to the scaling as well as overall continuity, his more recent lore from Scott Snyder's Justice League is more consistent overall and continues to showcase him as a truly multiversal threat. Created by the Mother of Worlds known as Perpetua, Mobius and his two brothers were tasked with surveying and creating the various realms of cosmology. The Superman rogue known as Mr. Mixiot Spitlick, a being from the realm from which imagination originates, states that these three brothers and their mother are the four most powerful beings outright, period. While few are shown to surpass them later on, this should scale them above what I've detailed so far, with the World Forger managing to create the structure of Hypertime with his own hands. Think of Hypertime as a multiverse above the multiverse, based on time rather than space. When doing battle in a rebellion against Perpetua, the three brothers considered their powers relative enough to each other to fuse in an effort to defeat their creator. If one or more of their brothers thought that combining their power wouldn't be that big of an amp, then they probably just wouldn't even bother. This would mean that the Anti-Monitor, even without the energy of countless realities turned into antimatter fueling his power, natively boasts strength beyond Darkseid, Trigon, Eclipso, and that of an infinite multiverse. Parallax, Hal Jordan, possessed by the yellow entity of Fear, sported much of the Anti-Monitor's power from his peak, which was during Koei, then using it to wipe away the realm of the new gods, including Darkseid, and essentially destroying all realms from across time to its very end, all before the remaining heroes restore the universe in a similar manner to New Earth being formed after Anti-Monitor's devastation. Again, however, much like Anti-Monitor and Darkseid, we have to be specific about what point in time we discuss Parallax, as he has made various appearances after Convergence, wherein many heroes and villains were plucked from alternate worlds and the past. These are all likely from a point just prior to his loss, where he'd expended his energy to cause a decay across time, which is important to note, as the base form of New 52 Hal Jordan does battle with this weaker than peak power, Parallax, rather than when he sported the timeline erasing Anti-Monitor energy. Hecate and her dark counterpart, known as the Upside Down Man, are among, if not the outright most powerful gods to exist among contemporary pantheons. Hecate was the first god in creation, at least among the Greek, Egyptian, and Roman religions. While the Abrahamic god, or the Presence, is a controversial being to scale in some circles, a guidebook written by the Justice League Dark author states that through the sheer belief that the capital G god is the the one true creator, reality then manifests it to be so, as belief and faith are the most foundational systems in DC and can essentially retcon reality. That withstanding, Hecate is inherently more powerful than Zeus or Ares, who rival Darkseid, and Zatanna even outright says Hecate is a virtually omnipotent god, with John Constantine stating her to be the most powerful deity to set foot on Earth. Keep in mind that Zatanna bore witness to a specter amped by nearly every magic user at the time, clashing with Anti-Monitor. The sorceress even went as far to claim that these two possess power she's never felt in all her years. The pre- and post-Flashpoint Supermen merged in the Superman Reborn storyline, which allowed for both histories to be amalgamated, meaning at this time Zatanna would be well aware of Parallax, Anti-Monitor, Darkseid, and Trigon's abilities. Yet Hecate and her opposite are still said to be greater. Pariah, once a man forced to witness countless realities be ripped asunder at the hands of the Anti-Monitor, later became heralds of the Great Darkness. Or at least that's what he thinks. Somehow his trauma-born madness actually twisted the source for all evil. This empowered Pariah to defeat and take control of nearly every villain mentioned so far. Nekron, Darkseid, Eclipso, the Upside Down Man, and more. As I said, the Great Darkness is a force which influences and manifests as some of, if not all of the greatest evil in the DC multiverse. So Pariah's placement here depends on how impressive you think corrupting the Great Darkness truly is. For example, despite managing to exile the Justice League to pocket realities, Black Adam managed to KO Pariah with a lightning blast. Teth Adam is very powerful for sure, but being incapacitated by him for any period of time isn't becoming of one of DC's strongest villains, though arguably his ability to corrupt far outweighs his otherwise physical might at a scale which is hard to truly comprehend. The mother of the Anti-Monitor, World Forger, and the Monitor, as well as a contender for DC's true creator. Not only does she stand at the top of the cast of beings which Mixie considered the most powerful of all, with even a fusion of her sons not being enough to defeat her while she was even weakened, but she has well created pretty much everything in the DC multiverse multiple times over, using energy given directly from the source. This being an immeasurable font of creation, with Perpetua being one of few beings tasked by the will of the actual god to oversee and fuel the genesis of all reality. To put it plainly, the creator of Hypertime, the villain from Crisis on Infinite Earths, and another likely equal being all became a Super Vegito fusion, and Perpetua gave actual birth to them and sunned them all at once. She is also fused by and generates sources of strength that constitute those below her, such as the collective unconscious, as seen with Hecate, and crisis energy emanating from 0 Hour Parallax as examples. Some may be confused a bit by what seems to be contradictory lore, what with the life entity being described as creating the universe. Consider that, like Nekron, the same concepts can have different embodiments, especially when talking about transcendental type beings. Nekron is death as an enemy, the Black Racer is death for the platonic new gods, Black Flash is death for speedsters, and Death of the Endless is the highest caliber of the concept seen so far. The same could be said of the Source, the presence of God, Perpetua, and the life entity, with the mother of the multiverse being the most powerful, at least evil creator deity revealed yet. The Batman Who Laughs, an evil mixture of Joker and Batman, having already brought his reality to its knees, later undergoes a transformation similar to that of Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen, who could destroy all of creation to reset the metaverse, perhaps the most fundamental underlying narrative driving the nature of DC, that being the nature of Superman. With his power seeking to spread darkness across all worlds, he managed to battle and defeat Perpetua after siphoning crisis energy of his own. Tangential to that, Superboy-Prime in the pages of Dark Knight's Death Metal, The Secret Origin #1, from December 22, 2020, pretty much stalemates the same Bat Manhattan. I myself tried to make sense of this feat, as Superboy-Prime being this strong does fly in the face of most of his prior appearances. While he was a powerhouse in post-Crisis, the likes of Connor Kent or Cassandra Sandsmark Wonder Girl managed to contend with Prime pretty evenly. Even just prior to Death Metal as well, written by Jeff Johns, and Shazam 2019 number 14, Black Adam and Captain Marvel take down Prime. Maybe Black Adam is just built different and can box up Perpetua too. Not likely. A somewhat applicable cope is Prime's strange borderline gag character retcon power. He infamously rewrote time and space during Infinite Crisis, managing to bring people back from the dead as an example. He reads the comics he appears in, and so on. Many people wrongly assert that pre-Crisis characters far outclass their post-Crisis counterparts, despite feats proving that's not the case. However, it's possible that this almost fourth wall breaking classification, which Prime boasts, can manifest at different points. Either way, at his peak interpretation, he put the Batman who laughs on the back foot. And for those who remember my Cosmic Armor Superman scaling, this should make a lot of sense to you. Mandrak, the corrupted member of the Monitor species showcased in Final Crisis Superman Beyond. This vampiric devourer of stories existed in a realm of the Monitor sphere, the utmost edge of creation just shy of the Source Wall, the barrier cutting off the DC multiverse from the mysterious expanse of the Source itself. In his battle with Superman, piloting the Cosmic Armor Thought robot, their strikes were at risk of erasing the Monitor sphere itself, which is impressive enough, but more to the point, Mandrak was capable of giving Cosmic Armor Superman a fight, if not being superior to him. This is vital, as Cosmic Armor Superman represents literally every story, every comic or possible tale told in the pages of DC at least. This placement comes with a few citations though, as it's shown that Mandrak was both a finger of the Great Darkness and a source of power for Perpetua's Crisis energy. We could draw a conclusion here that maybe the hyper story embodied by Cosmic Armor isn't up to date with every comic book, and Mandrak might have been surpassed or subsumed by later villains. For instance, Mandrak and Superboy-Prime are depicted as having been corrupted or being fingers on the hand of the Great Darkness, whereas Darkseid is described as an entire fist compared to the larger being of true evil. Speaking of Darkseid though, as of DC All In, he's now realized that he's been bound to the narrative as a servant of a greater will, sacrificing his mortal form so his essence can control an entire universe. In the same way that Superman influences and shapes the DC cosmology through the concept of the metaverse, Darkseid, being the Man of Steel's opposite and equal in some sense, is now unbound by his role as an adversary and is building his power to become something new and deadlier altogether. With all that said, I hope you enjoyed my breakdown of DC's most powerful villains. Feel free to check out these similar videos on the end card, as well as subscribe for future content like this. Thanks so much, and I'll see you all next time.